Now I should be audible. Okay. All right. Welcome back to the Idiot Show, I guess. So yesterday you guys might have seen there was a huge, not huge, long, quick break because an idiot like me actually went ahead and I actually slept. I forgot that I was streaming, went back, did some work which was required during that quick break, and then went ahead and slept. By the time I woke up, it was already an hour worth of time. So sorry about that if if you guys actually was there the entire time. So yeah, that was weird, and I think that's something that I should be looking for. Like how can I forget that I'm streaming? Yeah. All right. Anyways, so today we'll be continuing where we left off yesterday, and we were somewhere around subdomain routing. So that's where I will be, diving into. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, sorry. All right. So we were somewhere around this where we were building CATS service. We were actually building CATS controller, and within that we were firing a bunch of methods. There were all, then there were parameterized function, and then there was a post function, which is a create. And we were somewhere around here where the subdomain routing was being discussed, which I didn't understand much, to be honest. Okay. So let's continue. So the controller decorator can take a host option to require that the HTTP host of the incoming request matches some specific value. Okay. So like for example, if it is localhost, so that is what it will take care of it. So for example, if I actually supply here, okay, host, let's say I give it localhost 3002, and that will be my cats. um why it is giving error? Okay, doesn't make sense. Oh, okay, it was just prettier error, so I don't need this either, I guess. So now if I go back here and refresh this, it will tell me this is not possible, but if I do it from here, this will not work either. So I think it's something that if I have a front end, then this should, and this is running on the back end, then it should be working if I'm correct. So if I do it something like this, curl x get http localhost 3002 cats, I won't get it still. Okay, if I remove this thing, Now it is coming back. Okay. I mean, maybe it's something related to, sorry, something related to this thing, some sort of like an external host. Okay. All right. Cool. So similar to route path, the hosts option can use tokens to capture the dynamic value at that position in the host name. Okay. The host parameter token in the controller decorator example below demonstrates this usage. Host parameters declared in this way can be assessed using the host param, okay, decorator, which should be added to the method signature. So the basically I'm not able to get exactly what the use case is. I'm not able to think about the use case, to be honest. I think it's subdomain routing. So if I'm coming from subdomain, then I can actually tackle that part. But wouldn't the subdomain routing require some sort of like a setting on the domain registrar and things like that, DNS somewhere setting there? We'll see. Scopes for people coming from different programming language backgrounds. It might be unexpected to learn that in Nest, almost everything is shared across incoming requests. We have a connection pool to the database, singleton services, and with global state, etc. Okay. Remember that. Okay, something is wrong with my voice. Okay. Remember that Node.js doesn't follow the request response multi-threaded stateless model in which every request is processed by a separate thread. Hence, using singleton instances is fully safe for our application. Swans multi-threaded stateless model. Okay, it does not follow that. In which every request is processed by a separate thread. Hence, using singleton instances is fully safe for our application. All right. If I'm correct, okay, we'll see what that means. Let me just see, like, what does that even mean? Like I said, I'm not too familiar with the backend, so let's see. Okay, explain this in simple terms to a FE front-end engineer. In Node.js, the server runs on a single threaded event loop. True, because end of the day, it should be a JavaScript, not on multiple threads like some other server-side frameworks. This means that instead of creating a new thread for every request, Node.js handles all requests in the same thread. Same thread, one after the other, or while waiting for tasks like database queries to finish. Okay. Now let's break down the statement. Connection pool to the database. Instead of creating a new database connection every time someone makes a request, we reuse the group of pre-made connections. This saves resources and is faster. Okay. Singleton services with global status. Singletons is like having a shared tool or instance that everyone uses instead of creating a new one every time. For example, if your app needs a shared service like a logger or configuration, you only create it once and reuse it. Okay. All right. So under the hood, it is actually anyways using node. So that's how the behavior of the node is. Sorry. Why is this safe in Node.js? In some other system like Java-based servers, requests are handled in separate threads. This can make shared resources tricky because multiple threads might try to change the same thing, which is basically a race condition. Okay, in Node.js, since everything runs on the same thread, there's no risk of two different requests conflicting with each other over shared resources like singleton service or connection pools. Okay, that is understandable. Fair enough. Cool. This is much better then. However, there are edge cases when request-based lifetime of a controller may be desired behavior. Request-based lifetime. For instance, per request caching in GraphQL application, request tracking or multi-tenancy. Learn how to control scopes here. Injection scope. Where is the injection scope? Let's see where it actually takes us. Okay, in the fundamentals. Fair enough. We'll see later. Asynchronicity. Yeah. We love modern JavaScript and we know that the data extraction is mostly asynchronous. That's why Nest support and works well with async functions. Every async function has to return a promise. This means that you can return a deferred value that Nest will be able to resolve by itself. Let's see an example here. So there is a async find all. We will have a promise and we will return something. The above code is fully valid. Furthermore, Nest route handlers are even more powerful by being able to return RxJS observable streams. If I remember correctly, using the Angular RxJS, so basically, if here it is saying observable streams, does that mean that we can actually stream the values that are coming in? Nest will automatically subscribe to the source underneath and take the last emitted value once the stream is completed. Okay, that's something that I should try. Both of the above approaches work and you can use whatever fits your requirement. Okay, cool. No, I actually want to see what this observable stream is. So NestJS observable stream example. Streaming data in a service. Let's say you want to stream numbers like counter to a client using an observable. Stall. This should be already be there. There's a stream. We are returning this new observable. I think we can just do the off. Okay. It's also server sent events. Okay. Something that I'll be looking forward to. But for that, I have to revise this RxJS, which is too much if I'm correct for now. We'll see. Okay, request payloads. Our previous example of the post route handler didn't accept any client params. Let's fix this by adding a body decorator here. But first, if you use TypeScript, we need to determine the data layer, data transfer object DTO schema. Our DTO is an object that defines how the data will be sent over the network. We could determine the DTO schema by using TypeScript interfaces or by a simple class. Interestingly, we recommend using classes here. Why? Classes are a part of JavaScript ES6 standard. Am I still audible or not? Yeah. Okay. And therefore they are preserved as real entities in the compiled JavaScript. On the other hand, since TypeScript interfaces are removed during the transpilation, so people who don't know what transpilation is, it's basically converting one form of JavaScript version to another form of JavaScript version. So basically, or for that matter, TypeScript to JavaScript or JavaScript one version to JavaScript another version, ES6 to ES5 or TypeScript to ES6, things like that. Nest can't refer to them at runtime. This is important because features such as pipes enable additional possibilities when they have access to the meta type of the variable at runtimes. Okay, let's create cat DTO class. Create cat DTO. Okay, how about cats dot DTO? It's .ts, where I'll be just doing the entire thing. So export class create cats DTO, right? And this will be name of a string, age, number, and breed of string. Cool. It has only 3 basic properties. Thereafter, we can use the newly created DTO inside the cats controller. Okay, so we will have a body which will have cats controller. So this is my create. Here I will have body like this, which will have create cat DTO, create cat DTO, which will be of create cat DTO. Our validation pipe can filter out properties that should not be received by the method handler. In this case, we can whitelist acceptable properties, and any property not included in the whitelist is automatically stripped from the resulting object. In the create cat DTO example, our whitelist is name, age, and breed property. Handling errors. Let's see. Okay, techniques. We'll look into it later. There's a separate chapter for handling errors, that is working with exceptions. So I'll look into it later. Pretty sure about it. Hopefully there's no lag. Any lag? Cool. So full resource sample below is an example that makes use of several of the available decorators to create a basic controller. This controller exposes a couple of methods to access the and manipulate internal data. Okay, we have the post, which gets the create cat DTO and this, which we did it. Then we have a find all, which is query okay, list all entities, whatever that is. Okay, it's coming from DTO, but where is the DTO? Wait, did they just skipped? Oh wow, they completely just skipped the entire thing, and I was coding alongside with them. Okay, so list all entities is there. Pretty sure what they are actually trying to do with this is list all entities. Like I don't like when tutorials jump immediately, so that will be my name, age, breed, not bread, breed, and some sort of like I mean it should be an array, so we'll see. And update cat DTO should also be the same. Just making things up for now, we'll see later what happens. Okay, find all can have a query parameter which can have a bunch of queries, if I'm correct, is this thing, like this, ABC, right? So let's go here. In the find all, I will have a query, which will be list, right? List all entities, let's say, and here will be, this is an action, okay, like this. Let's see. Okay, I think it's this thing. Limit should be number. We should also have an ID, which should be string. Yep. Now just give me the string. I think it's like this. Yeah. So that's how it is. So this is the query. So if I have limit, I can go here and remove this. I can have here nothing. It will be undefined. But if I have limit equals ABC, so there's no validation that whatever is coming is actual number. It's just that it is, even though we have it here as number, the validation is not happening. At least not here. Okay, cool. Then we have the get ID, which we already had with the params with the ID of string. Let's copy this itself, because why not? Then we have a put of ID. Put is for update, which accepts the params like here. Then it also accepts the body, which is update DTO, and it is this. So let's put it like this. Put update takes params ID ID equals string, then we will have comma, then it will be body will have update cat DTO, and then this returns this action updates ID cat. Cool. Finally, we will have delete, which will be an ID. So it's basically saying like this feels like the CRUD operation, basically nothing else is there. We will also have params here, we will have ID here, we will have whatever the ID is, string, nothing to delete, which we will just has return this action removes cat, right? Nest CLI provides a generator semantic that automatically generates all the boilerplate code to help us avoid doing all of this and make the developer experience much simpler. Read more about this feature here. Okay. We'll look into it later. CRUD generator. So we have the validation pipe. I think it's in the technique. We'll look into it later. Getting up and running. With the above controller fully defined, Nest still doesn't know that cat's controller exists, and as a result won't create an instance of this class. Controllers always belong to a module, which is why we include the controllers array within the module. Okay, controllers array within the module. Decorator. Since we haven't yet defined any other modules except the root app module, we'll use that to introduce cat controller. I think this is already done. Yep, already done. We attached the metadata to the module class using the module of decorator, and Nest can now easily reflect which controller have to be mounted. Library specific approach. So far we have discussed the Nest standard way of manipulating responses. The second way of manipulating the response is to use library specific response object. In order to inject a particular response object, we need to use the rest decorator. To show the difference, let's write the cat controller to the following. Okay, now we are doing the using post create res, and we are getting the response, and we are saying res dot status. HTTP status is coming from next common, which is created, and then we are sending it. Same with this. Okay, so if I want granular control over what the status and things like will be, I should be looking for res. Yeah, just wait a minute. I'm checking certain things. Okay. Though this approach works and does in fact allow for more flexibility in some ways by providing full control of the response object, headers, manipulation, library specific features, and so on, it should be used with care. In general, the approach is much less clear and does have some disadvantages. The main disadvantage is that your code becomes platform dependent, as underlying libraries may have different APIs on the response object and harder to test. You'll have to mock the response object, etc. Also, in the example above, you'll use compatibility with the Nest feature that depends on Nest standard response handling, such as interceptors and HTTP code or header decorators. To fix this, you can set the pass-through option to true as follows. Okay. I think this is the best of both worlds. We can set our custom responses status and then utilize the inbuilt method of returning things. Now you can interact with the native response object, for example, set cookies or headers depending on certain condition, or leave the rest to the framework. Cool. All right, let's see providers. Providers are fundamental concept in Nest. Many of the basic Nest classes may be treated as provider: services, repositories, factories, helpers, and so on. The main idea of the provider is that it can be injected as a dependency. This means object can create various relationships with each other, and the function of wiring up these objects can largely be delegated to the Nest runtime. So there's a value, there's a component, there's a factory component controller. Okay, in the previous chapter we built a simple cats controller. Controllers should handle HTTP requests and delegate more complex tasks to providers, which means services and repositories, factories, helpers, and so on. Okay, providers are plain JavaScript classes uh, that are declared as providers in the NestJS module. For more information, see the modules chapter. Okay, since Nest enables the possibility to design and organize dependency in the more object-oriented way, we strongly recommend following the solid principles. Single responsibility, open closed, Liskov substitution, interface segregation, and dependency inversion. If I'm correct, single responsibility means it should have only there should never be more than one reason for a class to change. Okay, open close principle, software entities should be open for extension but closed for modification. Liskov substitution, functions that use pointers or references to base classes must be able to use objects of derived classes without knowing it. Oh god, this is too much of a OOP. That's why I actually went ahead with the front end, and not to mention the React. I even left the Angular for the same reason. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out later. Like, to be honest, I like the way the React is written. Not, but the backend has to be. I'm pretty sure backend is done differently. Therefore, they are actually advising about this. So, yeah. All right, we'll see. Services. Let's start by creating a simple cat service. The service will be responsible for data storage and retrieval and is designed to be used by cats controller. So this is a good candidate to be defined as a provider. Let's create a service. So cats service.ts. Yep. What is the error here? Okay, these are the errors. Now the service will be like this, where we are creating a class, and here we are actually having this object and we are creating the same things, and this is an interface. Interface is cat interface. Okay, should I have interface like, I think it's here, right? Interfaces cats.ts. cats.interface.ts, right? And this will be sport interface cats name string age number and breed string. So the difference between this and that DTO class is that this is a class which is a part and parcel of the JavaScript, so it will work on the runtime during the runtime, meaning once the code is running, whereas this interface will be stripped off. It's only for us, so it will be stripped off during the runtime. So that means if I go to this controller, and here what I'll do is I'll export a class called cat service, right? Yep. And I will have a read only. So it's kind of like a Java. I will have a read only property of cats, which will import this cats interface, and it will be initially nothing, right? Then I will have a create function, which will take a cat. Okay, I think I messed up the name. It should be singular. Then this will become singular, like so. I can then remove this thing. Then this will become just singular, right? And that denotes the multitude. And this will be this dot cats dot push, whatever the cat is. Similarly, if I have find all, it will be just going to return me a cat, and this will return this dot cats. Okay, to create a service using CLI, simply execute this. We'll do later. I just want to know exactly what is happening, but it is also kind of like an injectable. Okay, like this. A cat service is basically a class with one property and two methods. The only new feature is that it uses an injectable decorator. The injectable decorator attaches a metadata which declares that cat service is a class that can be managed by the Nest IOC container. By the way, this example also uses cat interface, which probably looks something like this. Now that we have a service class to retrieve cats, let's use it inside the cats controller. So now we will have a constructor like in Angular inside this. This will take a private service. Let's say cats service, which will have cats service, and that's about it. Then we can utilize this. So for example, find all will simply return me this dot cat service dot find all. And this time it will be async. Okay, and this should also go inside this, and I should take it here, which will be a string, and we'll do like console.log of query for now. Makes sense? Okay. Then we have find, this is create DTO. We will have async. Then we are not returning anything. We should be returning this, right? This is nothing. Okay, that therefore we are not returning anything. Is that it? The cat service is injected through the class constructor. Notice the use of the private syntax. The shorthand allows us to both declare and initialize the cat service member immediately in the same location. Yeah. Dependency injection. Nest is built around the strong design pattern commonly known as dependency injection. We recommend using the great article about this concept in the official Angular documentation. Yep, they have taken it from there. So if I'm correct, so it's kind of like a decoupling method, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly. It is a decoupling method where what happens is, let's say, like you don't want one particular thing to be coupled with the implementation, like the class to be coupled with implementation. You actually pass a very vague class which can be actually changed based on whatever whoever or whatever object is passing it, something like that. But if we want to understand it, maybe we should look into it. Understanding this hero service. Yep, I have to read the entire thing, which I'm not willing to do for the Angular purpose for now. Inversion of control is here, solid principle is here. Let's see, dependency injection. Give me a quick refreshment on dependency injection in NestJS with proper example. manage dependencies like services repositories efficiently. It ensures that objects are provided to other object as needed, avoiding manual instantiation and promoting modularity and testability. Key points of DI in NestJS: providers, class annotated with injectable are providers that can be injected in other classes. Dependencies are declared in the providers array of the module and they can be shared using the export array. Dependencies are injected via the constructor of the class. Create a service, okay. Use a service in controller, okay. Register the service in the module in this, okay. Add the module to app module, okay. How DI works is in the example. Hello service is a provider annotated with injectable. Hello controller depends on hello service. It receives the service instance in its constructor, which is managed automatically by the NestJS DI container. The hello module ensures that the controller and the service are available in the application. Benefits: scalability, no. Explain me in plain with plain example. It's simple example in pure JavaScript without any magic. Imagine you have a logger utility that different parts of application need. Instead of hard coding the logger, we'll use DI to inject it where needed. Right, now that this is the example that he mentioned, so we can have a logger like class, which then can actually, based on where we want to actually utilize this logger, it can log to files, it can log to database, it can log to console, but in the code it will be just let one logger service and it will be something like that, if I'm correct. Let's see. This is a service that logs message and it takes a method which is log and then it consoles log it. Define a main service that depends on this logger. So there is a hello service, which is a constructor with a logger, and this dot logger is a logger, and then it says hello name. We are saying this dot logger dot log. Okay, set up the dependencies and use them. So we can have a new logger, we can have a new logger service here, like we are injecting this particular logger, and here we are saying hello service dot say hello John. The moment we say that, we are actually going to log this message. Now the separation here is that in the constructor we are saying just this is a logger. We don't define what this logger is or where this logger logs. It's just injected dependency, and then here we are simply using it. Now here this is one implementation of the logger, which is consoling on our log, but it can also have another implementation, say file logger, or another implementation, say I don't know, some other logger, right? And we could have just simply utilized those loggers here, and we could have just passed that, and the entire functionality here of this log will have changed. So I think I understand that was a refresher. And it also helps in mocking for the testing. There's a mock logger, then mock logger is here. We can mock it and it will work. Yeah, so I understand it. So let me, I think if possible, we can have it like this. So imagine that we have a class. Do it like this, make it like this. Okay, imagine that we have a class here. Okay, so basically the entire thing is, if we have, let's say, controller, right, somewhere where we have to actually do some work. So basically what it is saying is that if we need, say, method, not this, let's say we need some sort of like a way to log things, or a way to, for our service, let's say it's, so I'm trying to just think in my own head how to explain myself. Okay, so let's say there's a class which for our purpose in NestJS, it's a controller. It can be any class ABC, and in this we have a constructor which takes say a service, right? For us it's a service, or it can be anything, right? That service can be anything. What we are saying is, rather than defining, I mean, we are injecting this service from the outside rather than defining the service within this controller itself. And then let's say we are using this service right here. Now, rather than defining this service inside as to what this use will do, like what this service will actually do, we are saying we will define it from the outside. We will say there's a service class, right? And let's say this is a service, and this will have some sort of like a functionality, say use, right? And this particular use actually do something, like it says console log here, right? And then let's say we also have let's go here, it's a B service, and this B service is different from A service, and it also implements this use, right? The same method which we are going to be using in this dot service dot use, but here rather than console log, it does alert, right? So in this case, what I can do is I can have a service, right, with a service, and then I can pass that inside that controller. Here I can provide a service, right? And then if I use this, then it will be using this thing. Whereas if I say it will be using a service logs, whereas if I do it like this, B service, then it will be using B service logs. So technically the implementation part we have extracted out in another class, whereas this particular thing now can be extended. Basically it's now more extensive, you can say. It will not change if I change the service. It's very simple, if I am correct. Yeah, it will not change if I change the service. I can actually plug and play whatever the service I want in my code, whereas this code will remain the same. I think this can also be utilized for DB management. Like I can utilize MongoDB. So while I'm writing things, I can have like one function of how to create things like that. But let's say everything was in PostSQL, right? PostgreSQL. But eventually we also need something like, sorry, MongoDB eventually, or let's say we need some way along the line, we have to change the DB. Then all we have to do is say, this is my post, or let's say this is my SQL service. We could just simply create a new NoSQL service, and here we can just simply change the service here, while nothing will change inside the controller or any class which is actually using it, whereas we could have easily replaced the entire DB from using the service.